Hey guys, Apto bags, and we wanted to take a second, wanted to go through just another little kit that I've got here. This is the Apto bags field first aid kit. So we're going to go through this bag, and I just finished putting this together. This is in the Condor EMT rip-away pouch. So if you come in here, you can take a look at it. This is built around, a while back, the military switched to the IFAK, a first aid kit style, and the idea was that it sits, you can rip it off, you have it, you open it, and you have access to your equipment. When you take a look at this guy, you've got some MOLLE on the front, you got a little Velcro up here if you want to put a first aid patch on it. On the side, you have a zipper. It's a double wide zipper on the side. Comes all the way down, opens clamshell style, and it sits on a MOLLE backing. What's interesting about the rip-away and what makes this nice is that it's held in place by Velcro and this strap. You take the strap, you actuate it, it drops away. The pouch itself, when this is locked into MOLLE, can then be ripped off of wherever it sits. So if it's on a bag, if it's on a wall, if it's somewhere, you can grab it and then go tend to what you need to. And it's a rip-away pouch. That's what you end up with. You end up with this kit. So that is why it's called a rip-away pouch. It can be used in conjunction, just like so, with the handle, leaving the MOLLE on, or just leaving it on the MOLLE and opening it. It's just an option. So here's the kit. When you first look at it, we've got it set up. And on the front, there's a few items that I've put on here. So we have two pairs of gloves. So when you open this strap, that pair is right there floating around, but you still got one on the actual pouch. So the idea would be you grab this first pair first, because that's going to disappear. On the pouches, in the MOLLE, I've set an extra pair of gloves. You always want to have some body substance isolation, or BSI. Gloves are the case. A Sharpie. And the Sharpie is important because if you're doing something like, say, apply a tourniquet, you want to mark the time on there. If you have multiple patients, you want to make notations of the treatment or the injury. You just want to write something down. A Sharpie comes in handy for a lot of purposes, especially within first aid. You'd be surprised. This could be even used in a pinch as a splint on a broken finger. You just would co-band it in place. So I put that in there. Ideally, you may want to add a pen light on top of here. You can add a SWAT T tourniquet. Those are great. That would fit right into the MOLLE there. I'm a big proponent of that. I've got a modified version somewhere floating around here that I made myself off of therapy elastic bands, same black level. And then on the front, we added a minor EMT shears. These are great for cutting away clothes or gauze, or just cutting as needed. And that just sits right there on the MOLLE. This isn't required to be this way. I've put it together this way just thinking, what would be the most basic kind of a first aid field first aid kit if we needed one? So this pops open. Here we go. We're going to go right into this. It comes with a strap which locks it in. This is pretty packed, so this additional strap is kind of nice. It gives you the option to, if you weren't bulging it, you could just leave it on the zip. I always like to use the retention straps on everything. It just protects the zipper structure. It has a clam style zipper, and I'm going to say this here right now. If you ever have a clam style zipper, please use it as a clam style zipper, keeping the zipper locked in the middle. The idea is a lot of people will sometimes do this with their zippers out of the way. The problem is if this zipper ever broke or malfunctioned, you have no access to the bag. The entire purpose of a clam style zipper is that if one zipper breaks, I still have access to the pouch through the other side of the pouch. So this is the bag here. We're going to open it up. Come on close here. So we're going to lay this down. I'm going to open up right here. All right. And we're going to roll it out open. And here is our field first aid kit. Everything, as you can see, is kind of put in place. When you get the Condor Rip-Away pouch, EMT pouch, there is no instructions of what goes where. Okay, so essentially you can play with it and put things where you feel you need. I've put this together in a very specific pattern, and I'm going to take you through it for two reasons. Number one, I'm always trying to optimize how much I can get something in there. I'd rather have redundancy in there because I believe in redundancy. Because I believe in redundancy. Because I believe in redundancy. The second reason is because I'm trying to utilize space. I'm putting things in different places. So you'll see this section here has been left empty. You could probably slip a SWAT T tourniquet right here, and that would lay flat. Can't promote that SWAT T tourniquet enough. And the reason I did that was just because I wanted this pouch to be able to close. There's enough stuff here. When it folds over, I wanted to leave a gap there so it could nestle properly. But you could slip in a SWAT T tourniquet, which is not present. I was going to get one and I didn't get it in time. So we're going to start from this end of the kit. There are a lot of items in here which I've put in referential to the level of my training. I am a paramedic. I am a state licensed paramedic. I've been a nationally certified paramedic. I've worked in 911 emergency. I've worked in private transport. I've worked in volunteer medical aid. I've worked in clinical care. So I put a couple things in here that you won't find in a regular first aid kit. Starting at this end, which I consider this pouch the specialty pouch. This is the extras. They fall out of the way. These are things you only need every now and then. And in there we're going to find 2 triangular muslin bandages. Great for many purposes. I'll put a link on there for a lot of these items if you don't know how to use them. But they're just 2 bandages that can be used to do a lot of things. You're going to find 2 different sized needles, an 18 gauge and a 25 gauge. Many a purpose in there. You're going to find a splash guard. This connects to a syringe and it allows you to do positive pressure irrigation, and it has a guard on there. This is a 10 cc syringe. It's empty but sterile. The idea being, if you're going to irrigate, you can do that with salt water, saline, propylene iodine. There's a lot of different things out there. In here, we're going to reach, and we do find a bottle of saline. This is eye irrigation saline. It just means that it's reached a neutral pH, so it can be used in wounds. It can be used primarily also in the eye. This is what I would use for wound irrigation. If I needed wound irrigation, you'd pop the top, and then you would squeeze it as needed to debris a wound. I would use this also for eye irrigation. The reason that's in there is if you do have an eye injury, if you have something you need to protect that eye, we don't want to be fumbling with filling something, drawing it up in the syringe, adding the splash cap. This setup would be for specific wounds or soft tissue wounds, and or other kinds of things. If I need to drain an abscess, whether I need to do a procedure on a foot where I'm removing a blister. So those needles, and this gives me some options to play with. The saline is isotonic, and it's a neutral base, so it can be used to flush out the eye, and it can be used to flush out chemical stuff because it has a neutral pH. There are 2 finger splints here. Why? Because you need your hands. If those get hurt, it kind of messes you up. So a finger splint just kind of goes on, and it would protect the finger. If I needed to lock out any kind of these joints or injuries to the finger, whether that be a cut or something, I'd put that on there. If I needed to immobilize the finger so it can't actually flex, I would just bend this out straight and then put some Coban, and it would lock out that finger in the hand completely. There's 2 of them. With 2 of them, I can take care of 2 fingers and or a hand, or do a couple different things out there. In here, again, these are specialty items based on the level of training. These are 2 nasal packing implants. So essentially, these will go into the nose. These are used, you take them out there, they're sterile, they go in at a 90 degree, they'll expand and stop a nosebleed. They're also very good for certain types of puncture wounds, and essentially they work as an expanding hemostatic clotting agent. Guess what also works? Tampons. So you can stick tampons in people's nose. those. Don't do that unless you're trained and know what you're doing. But you can. So there's 2 of those in here. Reaching in here, we're going to find 2 Mastel, I forgot what they're called, ointments. Essentially, these are designed as a glue. These work in conjunction with steri strips or butterfly sutures. And here is a nice assortment of sizes and lengths that would be used with the Mastel strips. Now, because of my training, and I'm going to emphasize this, never use medical equipment you're not trained on how to use. Go get trained on how to use it. That would be the flip side. In this particular kit, I have added 4 variant types of sutures. Okay, this is a field first aid kit. If we were in the field, hiking, on a shooting trip, some sort of, I don't know, shit hit the fan scenario, I think there's some sort of way to describe that. Sutures would be in there. I have sutured, I'm trained to suture, so I keep those in there, okay? Finally, we have the eye irrigation solution. You only have 2 eyes. The standard, and here, take a look at me here. The standard for emergency care, what qualifies you going to the emergency room via ambulance? The standard legally is considered life, limb, or eyesight. Anything that will immediately kill you needs to be treated and is important. If you lose a limb, you could die. It needs to be treated. You only have 2 eyes. Eyesight. It's a primary key to staying alive in a long-term situation, and in the field, you need your eyes. So, eyesight or eye care is important. So I have here an eye wound care kit. Okay, we have 2, which would just be standard dosing cups. Essentially, these can be used for irrigation. If you're not using positive pressure irrigation, you would fill that with a liquid. You'd place it on your eye. You would put pressure against your eye, look up, and you could blink, and you could wash out your eye as needed. It's a form of irrigation. Okay. These are 2 erythromycin ophthalic antibiotic ointments. You can't put Neosporin in people's eyes. It's petroleum based. It's not good for the eye. These are water-based ointments with antibiotic distributed inside, which are particularly made just for the eye. These are ophthalic or eye-based antibiotic ointments. So if you had an injury to the eye, something that could damage it, you definitely want to get some antibiotic ointment on there. If you were to scratch your cornea or damage the sclera, your eye is very susceptible to infection. That's where you get pink eye or conjunctivitis from. And untreated, that can cause issues. So antibiotic ointment is important. Damage to the eye may require protection of the eye. So you have an eye shield, which essentially just protects the eye from any other further stuff getting in there. And then a couple of eye pads. You would treat it, put some ointment on, put the eye gauze pads on, put your eye shield on, and then you'd be the governor from Walking Dead, because then you don't have an eye patch, you need a piece of gauze to wrap around to hold that in place. So there you go, you have some gauze. This is a complete eye protection kit right there, an eye treatment kit. And that concludes our specialty pouch. Now, the most basic key that kills people is loss of blood. Anytime you have damage to the body where the vascular system is affected, you lose blood. You need to control that blood, or the loss of thereof, which is called hemorrhage, control the hemorrhage. So we have our wound care area. So right here you're going to see, here's a couple of things. On the sides here I have 2 sets of securing devices. This is a Coban gauze dressing. Coban is stretchy and sticks to himself, sometimes called athletic tape. Essentially it's a way to secure a dressing or a gauze dressing onto a wound. Here's just some tape. This is a 1-inch silk, some really good stuff. And then here we have an assortment of different gauzes and dressings. The main thing, these first 2 here that you see sticking out, are 2 ABD dressings. These are 2 thick pad dressings, great for large hemorrhages, for large cuts, bleeding wounds, stabs, cuts, rips, gunshots get some pressure on there. What you're trying to do is clot the blood, so dressings hold the blood so it can clot. So there's 2 of those there, and they're quick grab, because if it's a really bad bleed, you need those right away. Here we have 2 Ace Wraps. Ace Wraps are great for 2 reasons. Number 1, they work as dressings. They'll hold something in place, but they also provide compression. So if I have a stabbing or a gunshot through the arm, I want to get pressure on there to occlude the pressure from the blood escaping. These work great. They also work great for sprains and strains and other things like that. Under here we have 2 large cling rolls. Okay, these are just standard gauze rolls and dressings. These can be used for packing. They have many uses. Get trained in first aid, but you get 2 of them. Why? 1 is none and 2 is 1. Over here we have, again, the same thing. 2 1-inch. Why? Because if it was cut on your hand and you have to wrap it, you don't want to waste this guy. You would use one of the small ones. And then we have 2 intermittent size 2 by 2 inch gauze dressings. So there you go. And that concludes this pouch right here, which is your trauma pouch. You have Coban and 1-inch silk to secure it. Now we get to our meat and bones section here. Now up here at the top, I have added a compressed military bandage. This is just a Gennaro style military bandage. Essentially, it's just cotton gauze. It's about, it actually says it on here, I don't even remember. It's purified gauze, white silk linen, no dimensions. Essentially, it's going to be a almost 2, I think, by 6-inch strip of compressed gauze. You'd rip this open, and if you start pulling this out, it'll expand into a wadded ball of gauze about, I don't know, basketball size. It's really good. It's good for gunshots and heavy bleeding wounds. And that's here at the top, because that's what you would need. Right here in the back, there's a pouch, and in that pouch, I've added a quick grab deployment pouch, including gloves, a mask to protect you from any airborne pathogens. This is a HEPA 95 base mask. Some alcohol swabs, separate. Don't use those in wounds unless you have to. They also work great for fire starting. But you can use that to purify instruments, clean off your hands, what have you. There's also some provine iodine swabs right here, or individual 1-by-1 swabs to wipe if you need to clean an instrument and or a smaller minor wound. Okay. Out here in the front of the pouch, we have our tools kit here. So we have about 3 different types of hemostats, about 3 different types of pickups or tweezers, and then 3 different types of scissors. Blunt scissors, just a basic suture scissor or gauze scissor, and then some bandage scissors by standard. Okay. Here in the front, we also have a little pouch where I've added 2 Castile soap pouches so that you can wash your hands. Castile soap is just a vegetable-based soap. It's one of the best simple soaps to degrease your hands. It cleans really well. It's the same kind as Bonner's soap. If you go camping, those are the same. They're just Castile-based soaps, some of the best soaps out there. Here, you can see a couple more provine iodine wipes, and then some provine iodine swabs for wound care and cleaning. Okay, get some training, learn how to use those. And over here on the other side of our instrument case, we have 3 pairs of scalpels, 3 different kinds. We have a 10, an 11, and a 15 blade. You can Google those and learn how to use them. And then we have 2 Dermabonds. And I've talked about Dermabond in a different episode of the Apto Bags channel. If you're watching, I'll put the link on there, essentially how to use it. It's a skin glue for minor cuts and minor avulsions. So there you are. So there's 2 of those right there to quick grab out. In our final pouch, we have our wound care gauze pouch. And I'll just pull those all out, come out together. And there we have an assortment of cotton gauze 2x2s, Tefla 2x2s, which are non-stick gauze. Teflon, these are 3x4s, and then regular 4x4 gauze. An assortment of those. You have 2 petrolatum or petroleum gauzes, which can be used for burns, and the lining or the container of this gauze is used for sucking chest wounds. Okay. I've also added my all-time favorite product, Tagaderm, by 3M, a DuPont company. Tagaderms. These were originally designed for decubitus ulcer wound care. You can Google that if you don't know what it is. Go do your own homework. I'm not here to train you guys. But these are great. There's several of them. They can be used for burns and stuff, for wounds, and you just put them right on there and they work like a bandage. They promote a moist healing environment. These are incredible. They're used actually by the tattoo industry. When you get a tattoo, you can put it on a tattoo and you can see the tattoo as it heals, and it provides better healing. So that's it. That's the kit. This is, I would probably call this a $150 item to maybe $200 depending, just because some of these items are hard to come by. Some of these items can only get ascribed to you if you know a medical professional. Gun and bourbon not included, but there you go. This is the Apto Bags Field First Aid Kit. Make sure you get one when you go into the field. If you have any comments, if you have questions, please just write it down in there. If you haven't clicked like, please click like. If you haven't clicked subscribe, subscribe. We also have a Facebook page apparently. Check that out. Or as always, don't. I don't claim to be an expert in anything. These are all my own personal views and opinions, but I am a paramedic, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. But yeah, this is the Apto Bags Field First Aid Kit.
If people see this video and they're interested in one of these kits, how do they contact us?
These kits are actually available for purchase if you want to buy one. I am willing to make one of these as seen here to spec and or custom. You can either message us through the YouTube or go to the Facebook page and send us a message and just put on their med kit purchase. And I'll try to message you back and we can have a conversation and I'll see what you're doing. I don't want to sell you anything you don't need. If you don't need an eye kit, if you just want something for hunting, I'll build you something for that. So if you really are interested, you can go do that. If not, you can just annotate. I'll annotate some of this and you can try to go find and buy this stuff and build your own kit. But yeah, other than that, God bless America. Yeah.